Hello guys, so how not to look dowdy? It's a very interesting subject because there are so many bloggers that were talking about this and I never watched even one video of them. I was super curious, but I just didn't want to interfere into my own perception. Still, I feel like I have a little bit of a wider perspective on beauty just because I don't consider this to be a must in a beauty world. I believe in characters. I believe that each woman has absolutely unique characteristics that belong just to her, and she can find her signature style that fits to that particular body, which is going to be unrepeatable but extremely modern and very fashionable, so that other people would look at her and they would feel like, wow, she looks great, something catchy is in there, and they want to repeat that. This is my viewpoint on beauty, so I never measure women by how hot she is, how small, how tall, how wide, how skinny. I normally look at that complicated combination of elements in each woman look, and sometimes if I'm asked for advice, I like to correct those small things. And you know, in the end, it always appears that there's much less things need to be corrected in order to make her look stunning, make her look more herself, more upgraded herself than she thinks she needs to do. Because I think when women have that lack of knowledge about style, beauty, and different kinds of elements, especially history of these elements, it's very important to know in order to perceive our present time correctly. If the woman doesn't have this information, she tends to blindly follow those very strange beauty trends. Injecting lips, injecting cheekbones, like doing something with herself that she didn't even need before, just because everybody's following that. So that's probably gonna make me look better, make me look more pretty, you know? That kind of an idea. So I think this all because of lack of knowledge. So this is another reason why I have this channel. I love to provide information, knowledge, and train our eyes to see more differences in different kinds of elements, so we would name them. If we can name them, then you can actually make them work for you, not against you, or not to create this mishmash of different elements. Some work, some don't, and you never understand what's happening. So it's very important. I think hairstyle, haircut, and hair color is probably one of the most important things in terms of beauty. Another thing is skin, but skin is just less amount of possibilities to change it because skin doesn't have any style. You whether put foundation that matches your skin and your skin is more even, or your skin is quite clean by itself. Healthy skin, which always looks beautiful. So healthy, glowy skin looks amazing. It doesn't matter how many wrinkles you have or have not. It's not about wrinkles at all. It's just about how clean your skin looks, how fresh, how moisturized it looks. So in terms of skin, it's just not that many chances to do a mistake. And third thing is brows. There are many kinds of mistakes women can do with their brows, because back in time, brows, whether were thinner, they had some weird shapes in the 20s. Yeah, when they started high up here and they would go much lower on the outer corners. That was because of the stage makeup, the film makeup. All that then became part of everyday women's life because they were mimicking the cinema stars. 20s, 30s, then 40s, 50s were thick brows, maybe a little bit too dark, but they were still thicker. Then we have 80s, sometimes very thin brows, or on contrary, super bushy brows, absolutely unplugged, which some women look great with, some women didn't. They still need to plug their brows a little bit more to look a bit more tidy and more elegant. And then in the 90s and 2000s we have these thin brows again, and then we go back to the bushy brows in 2010s after Cara Delevingne, and then since then we mostly stay within the natural range. Some women don't plug them, some plug them, but still it stays within that range. So in order to look quite modern, make your brows not too thin, not too thick. Tidy and good color and you're good. Talk in general, brows are very important. Even if you go without any makeup, you still have your skin, your brows, and your hair on. So those three things, I think they're major, because if these three things are good and you wear clean, even black or white t-shirt and black or white pants that are fitting you, you should be good. Because it doesn't matter that much what you're wearing here. It can be quite cheap actually. If it's clean and ironed, it's gonna look good. Especially something monochromatic, that simplicity, it normally upgrades the look. So in my viewpoint, this is the basic things of beauty: hair, skin, and brows. So next thing is makeup. Makeup can make you look dowdy. Basically, if you are really exaggerating, really repeating the makeup of some kind of a past decade, not just a stylization, not just an artistic way to represent, to remind us about that time. Yeah, I can do smoky eye like in the 60s, but I'm still blending them up much more, and I'm using different colors. I'm not using those clean colors or light greens, light blues. They are all very dowdy looking normally on anyone, but in the 70s and the 60s that was wow. Today is not, so I'm just not using these colors. I'm using these colors, like the mushroomy satin colors, smoky colors, very complicated browns and beiges. They all are amazing looking on basically any woman face. It doesn't matter of your coloration. Maybe if you have very, very dark skin, you would go for something whether a little bit lighter, so that would pop a little bit, yeah? Or you would go for something very black and accentuate your eyes. So if you go for these colors, whether it's grays, beiges, taupe brown colors, brown that are not very red, that are not very warm, because warm don't look good on every woman. Some women, they look like they have sick eyes. 70s, 60s, it was more light green, light blue. And now you can rarely find a woman who really looks great with this kind of colors, unless it's a certain stylization or unless it's not done just by itself. It has to be supported with really, really dark lash line if you're doing this. Otherwise, it will look very dowdy and quite unprofessional, because the professionalism of makeup artists is growing and growing and growing. Again, because we have this HD cameras that can show every single thing. We can zoom in any photograph and can see pores on the person's skin. So all the cosmetic industry is based now on figuring out how to make it even more natural looking, so nobody would even see when the blending ends. We want it to look natural, even if we go for unnatural looks. In the 20s, it was very, very dark eyes, and then if you go outside with this super dark makeup, it probably will be a little bit too much, so it will look dowdy. If you go with too frosty eyeshadow, very glittery, it will be too dowdy, because in 2000s it was very cool, especially having that top lid lighter and then bottom lid darker. It's also an application thing. Also, eyes can look swollen or puffy or hooded, even if you don't have hooded eyes. So that is another thing when you have those colors. On lips also, there can be colors like very, very light pink, which is matte and very cool color. The color itself is great, but it was popular in 2000s, in the end of 90s. Now everything is more or less about natural. Nowadays, this dusty pinks is the most famous lip colors, because they are very close to natural lip color. And of course, red. Red color is timeless. Some women look good with one kind of red, some women look good with another kind of red, but it's a subject for a different video. Another lip color that is looking dowdy still, unless it's a certain look. Again, there are still young girls who look like dolls, they use this color, but in the majority cases this color is looking very dowdy. It's pink with shimmer. What can be more princessy than this? Yeah, it's very gentle, it's beautiful as itself. I just like to look at this lipstick when I see it. When it's on the lips, it just looks dowdy. In the 80s it was a must. Now in the 90s, I also remember I myself had this lipstick. It was Bordeaux with shimmer. It was very, very popular. Not even brick color. Brick color actually is quite cool nowadays as well, especially if you're warm toned. It's gonna look great. If you're cool toned, it can accentuate redness on your face and make you look even green a little bit. But brick is fine in many cases. But brick color also can be different. If it's slightly more to a cooler side, it looks great on anyone nowadays. Some women love to go for darker lips, like dark Bordeaux. It's also timeless color, but it creates such an accent in your look, so you better think through the rest of your makeup, your hair, and your outfit. Many things depend on that. For example, I don't quite like the dark lips on this picture, but I love the dark lips on this picture. It can make you look too gothic, too stark, cold, and cartoonish a little bit. So as far as these lips are quite cold looking and quite dramatic, if you soften them with thicker, bushier brows, beautiful translucent skin with some contouring, some blush, not overdo the eyes, is gonna balance these heavy lips. Besides of color, application also plays its role. I've seen women who go to 50s. For example, they're drawing that line below their natural lash line on the bottom with liquid eyeliner just to create that Marilyn Monroe kind of film effect, bigger eyes kind of a thing. And I've seen women who use this white pencil still on the waterline. Some women can get away with that, especially if they have more rounded and big eyes. And women who have smaller eyes but thicker skin, for them it just looks very strange because they have this white line that cuts that iris. It's great on stage and theaters when they want to make their eyes look much bigger. They sometimes do that trick, but not a regular life. If you want this trick, just choose a nude pencil that is same color as your skin, but still I would not do that. Just leave it empty, that's gonna be fine. If you go for too bright colors, too artificial things, and too artificial application, it normally looks quite dowdy. I've seen many women that are a little bit more than 60 years old who are still living in that 80s era when they were teenagers and stuff. So they were applying normally that black pencil along their lower lash line and along their top lash line, but it's not the worst thing. On the bottom, they normally would apply this line and not blend it. Sometimes they put a little bit of that blue eyeshadow on the top. Again, not because it's aesthetically pleasing, but just because they're used to this. And it's very great to see these women when you actually help them to apply makeup how we normally apply it nowadays, and just teach them how to do that, how to blend that line, how to make it maybe not that black. Maybe we can go for brown and taupe brown colors for the daytime and make it a bit more smoky, and then when they look at themselves, they can't recognize themselves. They look like 10-20 years younger than they used to look with this kind of makeup that they did for themselves. It's very interesting how just the application can change everything. Too much contouring in 2010s, it was a must. Beauty bloggers era began in 2010 and women started feeling themselves all the time. So they started experimenting with the setup. They noticed that if they have this good professional lamp on them, that their face looks like a moon. It looks wider and more flat, so they need more contouring. Of course, it's a rule for filming yourself. So they started using a lot of contouring. They started teaching you how to do this contouring. Contouring techniques started being a bit more complicated. So many contouring products appeared in the shops. Before, we never had them. Then at some point it became too much, and now we contour just a little bit, just still to be in more natural range. And all that clean girl makeup, strawberry makeup, all that is just a name. Basically, we're playing with colors and very blending techniques, blending applications to achieve natural but still quite polished, quite fresh look. We still opt for naturel. Another thing, if I might say so, injected lips is also out of trend. I think it became much more affordable and many women started going for these injected lips even if they don't even need it. And that is the worst thing, because I can understand some women, they feel like their lips were they're too tiny, or like I can understand, even in that case, I think they can make their lips work perfectly for them, because I think thin lips are very beautiful. They're as beautiful as big lips. But it just became a trend, certain status with a woman with inflated lips. I think in majority cases it looks swollen and sick. So I do think it looks very dowdy and it's creating a different vibe. It normally women who think that being hot equals being beautiful, as far as they confuse these two things in their head, I think this is why they kind of go for that, because they feel like, oh, in this case they will get more attention, more acknowledgement for their beauty, which in majority cases is not the case. Yeah, they get special kind of attention, but maybe it's not something that they want to go for, like hot doesn't equal being beautiful, right? So I think this particular thing, especially along with cheekbones, which are also over-injected, that can make you look very, very dowdy. And again, not older, but old-fashioned and not you anymore. So think many, many times before you do this. There's another trick about lips I wanted to give you in this one, but then I just thought it's gonna be in one of my next videos. We're gonna do mature women tips and tricks. So let's go now to hair. Now, hair, it's a huge subject. And to squeeze it all in one video, it's gonna be impossible. So I'm just gonna give you the very general things. So if we look in different decades in the past, in each decade there was a certain type of a hairstyle that women were wearing and that considered to be very, very modern at that time. It's such a signature thing. So if I show you this, you probably, without even hesitation, tell me the decade. Of course, 50s. Now this, without hesitation, 60s. Now this, of course, 70s. Now this, 80s. Now this, 20s. You see, so each decade of the 20th century has its own look that we can recognize it by. If you're getting ready for a party for the evening, your hair should match your makeup. You definitely have some artificial makeup, so you can get away with more artificial hair, with some clothes that you're normally not wearing every day, right? Everything has to look uniform. We kind of stay within certain rules when we go for glam. And actually I have a great video what glamour really is when we go to history where it all started, when we have this word glamour. So I'm gonna leave the link down below. This is very interesting. But of course, if we're thinking about ourselves, just look good in our everyday life, we do several manipulations, preferably not much, or preferably do nothing with your hair, and just be ready to go out and look kind of neat, tidy, and kind of like elegant in your casual look. So once we want to achieve that thing, there are certain things that can make us look dowdy. For example, if there are women who have curly hair, if they make that Marilyn Monroe layered bob like this, too rounded by the face, especially women who have more dramatic bone structure, more straight, elongated and sharp, as opposed to Marilyn Monroe like lash and rounded features, then in this case you're risking to look dowdy just because this hairstyle was very popular in the 50s and now it gives you plus 10 or 20 years sometimes. So it might look dowdy. Also, if you're styling your hair very much with a huge volume, also it is great for a party. Maybe in the 60s it looked cool, but then nowadays it can look dowdy. I've seen some ladies who do huge volume a la 60s, but they have so much hair naturally, so their hair is their accessory. So they look very much within their nature. When people look at them, they don't feel any discomfort. Nothing is sticking out. Everything looks very blended. She just looks cool. Problems start when you have very thin hair, for example, and you're trying to backcomb and spend a lot of time to actually change it to something huge. Again, in some cases you can get away with that, but then you won't do it every day. There are still some women who have thin hair, but they look good with some kind of volume, so they still backcomb a little bit and make it volume. I think that's perfect. But then when it's a lot, something that looked natural in the 60s won't look natural today. Nowadays everything is still a little bit calmer. Even if you go for stylization over a past decade, you still don't want to exaggerate it too much. Just make the shape more natural, closer to how you would wake up in the morning. You can actually spend much time with that, and I think it's great. It's nothing bad with that. It just won't look like you spent much time with that. You know what I mean? Also, nowadays shaggy hairstyles or layered hairstyles, especially with curly hair, they look slightly different, not like in the 80s. In the 80s, perm was very popular. Of course, now if somebody's gonna have that perm, especially along with this slightly yellow hair color, it's gonna look very, very dowdy. It's not gonna look elegant, expensive. It's interesting, but it's not aesthetically pleasing anymore for our eyes. But it was back then. Back then you would look at that girl like, whoo, she's hot. But our perception changed, our life changed. So we have different kind of curly hair, even if it's layered. It's still possible to go for that 80s stylization, but then it still will look a little bit different today for you. If your hair is too fluffy, it's gonna look like perm, and it's not looking healthy enough and modern enough. Today, it's still better when the curls are more chunky, if your waves are more chunky. Maybe it should be very well made balayage with darker roots and lighter ends. That can look quite modern today. Now, recently, that 90s blowout became very popular. It's when women are curling. Sometimes you just use curling iron and you're just curling the ends of your hair. And I remember about maybe 7-8 years ago when I was watching tutorials about long hair waves, it was a huge no-no to curl your ends like that. And I remember famous stylists would say, you never curl your ends of your hair. It looks very dowdy. Nobody does that anymore. It was popular in the beginning of 90s. Fashion magazines when there were women with clips and, you know, like they were showing that rich lifestyle. Now everything is about that relaxed beachy wave. So you would actually straighten your ends, making the curls in the middle of your hair. And now it's still a trend. And you can't go wrong with that just because it looks natural. Many women have their hair like that naturally. They swim in the ocean, they go out, they have pretty much like that hair. So once it looks natural, it can't look dowdy. It can look untidy sometimes. It's too casual, but it's not looking dowdy. It looks modern enough. Just recently, this 90s blowout is back. I think this trend is also connected to that old money situation. As far as this subject became very, very hot in the last couple of years. I don't know why actually. Maybe it's connected to these nouveau riche, new money people who started flashing a lot with the brands and stuff, and this thing became so big. When we have something that big, there's always something opposite that's balancing that. So no, let's be a bit more modest, a bit more calm. Let's go back to the old money. Probably this is how that started, but I'm not sure. I never researched about this. It just came to my mind right now as I'm recording this video. I didn't even prepare this video actually. I prepared absolutely different videos to film. So everything I'm telling you in this video is just out of my head right now. So yeah, you see, now this curled ends, whether it's bob or longer hair, looks polished, very elegant, very expensive, and not dowdy anymore. I think it will stay for a long time. Just because, again, it looks quite natural. Boyish cuts, everything depends on your face shape. I just recently made 2 great videos about pixie haircuts. Don't do pixie if you don't watch this video. The basic rules about shapes of the faces, facial features, and what this or that pixie does to your face. Another video I have pixie for the body types. It's a huge subject of Kibbe body types that I have on my channel. I'm also talking about what character, what beauty type you have, what vibe, what signature look you have, and then if that pixie suits to that particular thing or not. I think this is more to consider. And pixie is not something that would be dowdy or not dowdy. Sometimes it's not the hair. Sometimes your hair is perfect. You just need to change a little bit your makeup, your maybe jewelry you're wearing. Sometimes some women, they just like wearing that kind of jewelry, and I think it's just a bit dowdy looking on everyone nowadays. It was perfect. In the 80s and the 90s, it was so beautiful. Now I think it's dowdy. If you still want to go for something more natural, just go for something like that. Kind of like a mixture of that classic thing and natural thing. Mixture between glamour and natural thing. So it's all about mixture nowadays. When you train your eyes to see the mixture of styles in one piece, then you will still have this very unique look, but it's gonna be unlike anyone else. You will find your style within that. And you won't look cartoonish, or you won't look costumish, as if you just visited 80s party or 50s party. Now we have kind of like that style without style. We don't have stylization anymore. We have elements of different stylizations and combination of those elements. It's the matter of how you combine them. For example, you can look very dowdy if you go for every element of the 50s. Your dress, your shoes, your makeup, your hair, everything is from the 50s. Then you go outside and everybody thinks that you're just walking from the party. That is just a costume. It's not gonna look like a natural look nowadays. It's just how we see things, we get used to things, and also the situation in the world. With everything that is happening in the world, it kind of dictates to us how we look, and we kind of, you know, bit by bit, looking at each other, we kind of form the way we all look more or less similar. Of course, there are always people who want to look very extravagant, but normally that fits them so much. They look like characters, and I'm admiring these people. These people really know what they're doing. They're expressing themselves, but there are loads of people who don't need that to express themselves with that. They're expressing themselves with a lifestyle or with their work. They're professionals in their work. Like, everything is an art, right? So if you really love that 50s style, you can always choose some elements and still throw in some modern elements, and this is gonna be more modern look. Same about 60s, about 70s. If you go to 70s with this kind of a top, with this kind of jeans, with this kind of hair, with this kind of makeup, you will look very, very 70s, but you might look a little bit dowdy. So many things also depend on a fabric, on the way the garment is made and things like that. It sometimes can look quite modern even if you are going for a majority of the elements of it. Always think about mixture and train your eyes. And we talk a lot about history of fashion and different fashion elements on my channel, so stay tuned, and then it will help you to see different elements of different looks. That probably wasn't very structured video, but just as I said before, I didn't prepare it. It just, everything came out of my head. I just really wanted to discuss this subject with you and just also to see what you think about it. Thank you so much for watching, guys. Subscribe to my channel, put thumbs up if you liked the video, and I'll see you very soon. Bye bye.